Namaste. Welcome to the Drishtikon Show. I'm Desh Kapoor, and we are here with our next episode of the geopolitical series with Mr. Ankush Bhandari, who's a co-author of the book Geopolitics Redefined: Punctured Truths and Glamorized Lies. Today we will discuss the history of the Indo-US relationship, part 2. The last episode was part 1, and today we'll actually talk about part 2. We'll start from the 1980s, but before that, we will do a recap of what we discussed yesterday and the things that we may have overlooked or missed. So let's start discussing. Namaste, Ankush
Namaste,
ji.
Deshji.
Namaste.
Well, thank you once again for inviting me on the very stringent episode of India-US relation. As an Indian American, I think that's the most important we want to discuss
Right.
and want to look forward that both the democracies has relations, not only people to people, but administration to administration at the best in the history, right?
Correct. That's true.
Yeah.
So yesterday we were at a point of like early 1970s, but I think there were a few things that we were discussing just now that we may have like kind of overlooked, and there were certain things which had a lot of implications on how the Indo-US relationship was shaped.
Right,
So
right.
do you want to recap and share those things also with us?
Yeah, yesterday we discussed about how the Indian relation has started before independence, how we have the Gadar daily call, daily paper here, and how the American president, like whether it's Roosevelt or whether it's Wilson, they have openly advocated for the independence of India because they said they have fought their own battles for their independence and they can very well understand how tough it is when the people are not independent of their policies. They can't make their own policies, and for which the Indian, I think the Indian as such, maybe American and Indian both know, didn't know, because it never taught in the history book that how far our relations goes. When it was just the United States of Philadelphia, the relations goes with the India till then. And even the American ships has came to the Indian ports and have done the trade. So trade relation is from 1400, 1500 times, so 14th
Right.
or 15th century. But you are very right. I also want to highlight how President Roosevelt, he was very instrumental in getting proposals, I will say, for the war of independence for India. And he has also written to the Churchill that enough is enough. You should also now make a decision of liberating the India and start preparing the government, and start preparing for the creation of the government in India.
Right.
Just I get some of the experts from there. So excerpts. Let me tell you some excerpts from there.
Okay.
So after the Second World War, or during the Second World War, when the Pearl Harbor was attacked in 1941 December, America realized the need for India's cooperation in the war effort. The strategic importance of India as a base of operation against Japan was one of the chief factors which forced the Roosevelt administration to take interest in the Indian political problem.
Right.
In 1941, the summer of 1941, US government agreed with India and Britain for the exchange of diplomatic personals. In
Hmm.
October 1941, Thomas H. Wilson was appointed the US Commissioner in New Delhi, and Sir Girija Shankar Bajpai was appointed India Agent General in Washington, D.C.
Hmm.
And it was under the act of the overall supervision of the British Embassy. So, moving forward, in April of 1942, the government of United States established the Office of War Information in New Delhi. Henry F. Grady came as the head of a technical mission to make a survey of India's industrial potentialities and to suggest the improvement with a view to increase production. In due
Right.
course, United States supplied a huge amount of American goods to India under the Lend-Lease program. India also retaliated by supplying goods to America in pursuance of its reciprocal aid program. American technicians took part in construction roads, airports, factories, and American troops were stationed in India in a substantial number. I think
Hmm.
neither India knows this nor the American people know this.
Yeah, that's true.
And in addition to that, He was so generous, President Roosevelt sent a cable to Churchill, the then Prime Minister of Great Britain, on March 10th, 1942, suggesting the formation of a government in India representing various religions, geography,
Hmm.
occupational group, as well as British provinces and native princes. He thought such a government could be treated as a temporary Indian domain government.
Oh,
Yeah. See,
that's very
he said that it should be treated as a temporary Indian domain government because, and then he also sent Colonel Louis Johnson in India as his personal representative with the rank of ambassador in April of 1942.
correct.
So it is not that ambassador came to India after 1947. India has the Indian US ambassador in April of 1942. And even during the stay of the Cripps missions in India, Colonel Johnson held unofficial talks with many important Indian political leaders.
Hmm.
It was believed in many quarters that Johnson held this discussion under the express instruction from President Roosevelt.
Hmm.
And when the Cripps mission failed, Nehru, one of the first prime minister who became later the first prime minister of India, wrote to Roosevelt, "Dear Mr. President, I am venturing to write to you as I know that you are deeply interested in Indian situation today and its reaction on the war. The
Hmm.
failure of the Cripps mission to bring about a settlement between the British government and the Indian people must have distressed you as it has distressed us."
Right.
Also, Gandhi wrote to him, "The light troops will remain in India during the war under the treaty with a free Indian government." I want to focus on the word under the treaty with free India government
Right.
that may be formed by the people of India without any outside interference, either direct or indirect. It is behalf of this proposal that I write this to enlist your active sympathy.
Hmm.
And then President Roosevelt also replied back on August 1st, 42, saying that I'm sure you will agree that the United States has consistently striven for and supported the policies of fair dealing, of fair play, and of all the related principles, looking forward the creation of harmonious relations between the nations. I shall hope that our common interest in democracy and righteousness will enable your countrymen
Hmm.
and mine to make common cause against a common enemy.
Right.
So that common enemy, it can be whether the Nazis forces or it can be he is relating to the British Empire. Who knows? Because America has also fought against the Britishers to get their independence, right?
Right. Right.
So that's very important to let the people know that, who the viewer know that this is not that American relations started after post independent. It was also pre independent, and the Indian freedom fighters were in direct discussion with the president of America at that time, with the
Right.
senators, with the congressmen, everybody. So well in the political arena, Indians were very active at that time too. You
So
know.
at least the Congress, like Indian National Congress, leadership was like it seems very closely aligned with the American leadership as well, the political leadership. So that was that was a good thing because that kind of enabled the British to move along that. Although we do know that like there was a dichotomy between how Clement Attlee, the Prime Minister of UK, who gave India the independence, and Winston Churchill, who did not want to give. So there was this dichotomy there, and I think that somehow was helped by how like maybe the US was kind of like backing Congress
Yeah, the
like at
US
that
was backing Congress, or we
time.
can say the how the Indian leaders were asking the people of America as well as its president
Right.
to put our case, I will say, right? in
Right.
a very diplomatic and in a very bold words that enough is enough. Now we should have a union of the Indian government.
Right.
So,
But
and
there
it,
was
it
another like additional factor of like Netaji and how India really got its independence. But
yeah,
like that is something that we'll discuss later on.
right, because
But some
that
other
was
day.
very instrumental. Now it was said that it was non-violence, but me and you as an Indian who has heard from our grandmothers and grandfathers, because they may have fought at that time during the war of independence, or their parents have fought,
Right.
they have taught us what actually was the position on the ground, and how these people fought, whether it's Vashindra Neta Bosji or it's Bhagat Singh, because I am from Punjab. I have heard a lot of stories of Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, Sukhdev, Lala Hardyal Singh, a lot of them,
See, the role of Indian National Army that Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose actually created
Yep,
was like the instrumental thing, why India got its independence. But I think we'll be digressing if we go into that. Like we
yeah,
should discuss that, like maybe in some other thing.
episode,
But
yeah,
what they actually did was they actually used the prisoners of wars that were with Hitler and Mussolini in Italy as well as in Germany, and from World War I and World War II, which not many people know that a lot of Indians fought in
yes.
millions. Like we were
Yeah, 2 million. It was a major
right,
people who lost their lives
right,
were Indian in the British Army.
correct.
People are
Many
not
people
aware of
say that
that.
the World War I was won on the backs of Indian army of Indians.
Yes, exactly. That's why America was very focused that these people have fought the World War One and have won it. So that's why Roosevelt, as I told yesterday, there are no free lunches in politics, right?
Right.
So Roosevelt must have thought, why don't we set up in New Delhi so that we can have the whole information coming and it can be instrumental to us. And it's always win-win situation. Let you set up and let's me help you in your
Right.
independence. Let me write to the world. I don't know what's happened behind the
Right.
scene, what happened behind
Because
closed
the
door,
way I'm
but
looking at it is that, when Netaji actually took all those prisoners of wars and created his own army in
right,
Japan, which was
right.
another ally, or, as they call the Axis forces, and then marched all the way to India from the eastern side,
Mhm.
against the British army. And like that, what happened there after the naval mutiny and all those things, that was the main instrumental reason why India got its independence. But I think like that is why there was a dichotomy between how Congress was aligned with the US and the Western forces, and how the other like people like other groups which were actually more responsible for India's independence than
Yeah,
maybe even Congress was.
exactly. Yeah,
Right,
90% of the fight was for. So India has never get the war independence on its plate, right? We have suffered a lot. If you can
right,
see,
right,
1857 in War of Independence, 1900 the partition of Bengal. That's
right,
another day we can discuss the
right.
story, right? But
Yeah.
what
So
I
so let's go
yeah.
further on
Yeah, and also
from
I
this.
want to highlight one thing. Yesterday, I think we didn't talk on the Green Revolution.
Yes,
India is very much thankful to the American scientist
absolutely.
Norman.
Yeah,
I think
Norman Burlock. Yeah,
yeah, I'm Norman Burlock, who collaborated with the Indian scientist Dr. M.S. Swaminathan.
right,
And in 1963, before the Indo-Pakistan war in 1965, it happened in 1963. He came all the way to India. They said the land is good and whatever happened, and he was responsible, and he was a main factor that India has a green revolution, and from food scarcity, it become an overproduction, and it starts supplying food to the Europe and Americas and to the now India's of food. India's called as a food bowl for half of the world, right?
right.
Egypt,
Because
you
like it
say
is said
after.
that between 1965 and 1970, the wheat
Right.
production nearly doubled
Yeah, nearly doubled. Right.
for
And
both
I'm from
Pakistan
Punjab,
and
so I
India.
have heard that a lot
Right,
from my parents' mouth that and the prices came so low for the price of the wheat that they said they were astonished with that how it happened.
right.
You know.
And then
So
like Burlock actually got the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970 as well for all the work that he had done in Asia, Africa, and even in South America, for that matter.
yeah, exactly. So moving forward after what we discussed yesterday about the how Nixon words, which was very bigotry, which were very words like sexism to the Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and they turned me off, and all those, and even Kishinger, who himself was Jewish, right, and have
Hmm.
suffered a lot of racism just couple of years back at the times of Hitler, calling Indian as bastards, and they are, and a lot of other things which I don't want to repeat here again.
Right.
So I was surprised at how a Jewish who has suffered, whose community has suffered a lot, can be so have some racist comments against one particular community. So but I will also mention here, maybe it's people to only related to the people. Sometimes they have their own thoughts instead of calling the whole community as a wrong. So it's all depend on that, right?
Yeah, but I
So
think there was, I mean, like we have seen, like even in the case of the media, like we talked about yesterday, Washington Post, New York Times, we have seen even in NPR, there's
yeah,
open like Hindu misia or anti-Hindu
yeah, which is
sentiments,
still
which
going
is all,
on, and
yeah,
we
it's
are
still
fighting a
going on.
lot.
Right,
We are
right,
fighting a lot here, right?
right. And so in that sense, like that was there, but like there were a lot of positive things which were happening also.
Yeah,
And
obviously,
right, so
obviously.
1971, like all this happened, and then 1974, which was I think maybe another low time when India
Conducted the nuclear
detonated the first nuclear
yeah,
bomb,
called
like
the
low
Smiling
time in the
Buddha.
relationship, but not for India because I think it was an important step for India that time.
Yeah, because after seeing that three wars within a span of 10 years, like
Hmm.
62, 65, 71, within a span of 10 years, which has pushed India back. My dad used to say it pushed India development back to 20 years back, right?
Right.
So he said then India thought of a need that we should do something so that, see, being a nuclear deterrent doesn't mean that you are going to bombard somebody. It's for your own protection,
Correct.
that if you look at us, we have the capability to kick your asses,
Right.
that's what it is called when you have the nuclear arsenals in your stockpiles, right?
Right.
So India detonated its first nuclear device in 1974, and it sent the shockwaves in the White House, and they put some sanctions on India. But India said it's all for the nuclear, for the peaceful, because we want electricity to be generated. We are not going to have the nuclear bomb. And I think India stick to its promise for the next 24 years, right? Because in
Hmm.
1998, finally India has this nuclear bomb when we were being seen the threat from the China. The economy was rising, and they were doing
Because by then I think a lot
encroachment.
of things were happening, right? In
Right.
the way I look at it was because of how NATO and US allowed, actually facilitated the nuclear proliferation to happen to Pakistan and through Pakistan to other like countries. That is why India was very frustrated. So it was all happening clandestinely, in fact openly, but it was being under the radar and nobody was talking about it. The US presidents, one after another, year after year, through the personal amendment,
Yeah.
were lying through their teeth all the time that Pakistan did not have a nuclear weapon when
And
they
it was
knew for
Clinton
sure.
only. It
Yeah,
was Clinton only who said Pakistan has not gone as per the Presler agreement, so
right,
they we should punish them,
correct. Because
and
they
they put
kept
the
on
sanctions
signing it.
on.
Reagan, Bush, everyone kept on, Jimmy Carter, everyone kept on signing it, knowing
Yeah.
fully well that Pakistan was not only just having the nuclear weapon, but was arming F-16s that US gave them with the
Yes.
nukes. And still nobody did anything, and they kept on lying. I think that there was a sense of frustration that was like building up in India. So by like what they did in terms of nuclear blasts, they actually brought everything out in the open. Now
Right.
everybody knew Pakistan had it, India had it. Now what? So I think in that way it was a good thing. But like let's go back to the 1970s. So after 1974, the emergency happens in India. Indira
Yeah.
Gandhi goes away, the new government comes in.
Yeah, the Janata Party government comes in, right? And
Right.
Morarji Desai became the prime minister.
Uh,
And the same political arena changed in the US after Nixon was kicked out of White House after the Watergate scandal, right? And Jimmy Carter take out the oath as a president of America.
Right.
And then the Carter administration thought, let's whatever the bitterness is going between both the democracies, let's take it off and let's have good relation. So on January 1st, 1978, he was the first, after John F. Kennedy. So because Kennedy was also in favor of having much better relations with India than Pakistan,
Hmm.
because he said that Pakistan is not a democracy, it's a dictator government, it's a military rule. At least India is a democracy, people vote, and the people come in the power. So Kennedy was also, and Kennedy and Mrs. Kennedy also visited India. And after Kennedy, after a long time of 14, 15 years, this gentleman, Jimmy Carter, he make a visit on January 1st, 1978. And Mr. Desai, the Prime Minister, also reciprocates with a sixth official visit to Washington on his invitation in June. So at that time, we can see, after a lot of bitterness from 1965 till 1978, a whole 10, 12 years of bitterness, the relations started on moving on the right track. So, but in 1978 also, one of the major thing happened in US on March 10, 1978. The US enacts a non-proliferation act. Okay,
Right.
non-proliferation act, in which it says that it requires the country not included in this treaty, which also includes India, to allow the inspection of all the nuclear facilities by the International Atomic Energy Agencies.
Hmm.
India said, no, we are not going to go for any of your act. It's not passed by any UN. It's passed by America. We are not going to go with one America rule, right?
Right.
If it has been passed by you, it has been passed and agreed all by the 192 countries. It's a different thing,
Correct.
but not by America. We cannot be a play again like a master slave role. Okay,
Right.
so and then Washington gets so furious that he said, okay, we are not supplying any uranium to it.
Right.
And at that time, Russia stepped in, and I think France also stepped in, and they said, we are going. I'm not sure about France, but yes, Russia, under the Treaty of Indo-Soviet friendship and all development, he stepped in and he said, okay, we are going to supply India with the uranium, because we have Tarapur project, we have a couple of projects going on to for creating the electricity and all those, right? So they step in and they help India in getting the enriched uranium, so that we can go ahead and continue with our peaceful efforts.
Right.
So, and after Jimmy Carter lost to Ronald Reagan, and India also had the re-elections in 79, I think 80, right? And
Yeah.
Indira Gandhi again back, and similarly in 80, when America has an election, Jimmy Carter lost and
Correct.
Reagan becomes the new president. So both countries has the different prime minister, different authorities, right? Different administration. So they also said, okay, enough is enough. We have a very strange relationship under Mrs. Gandhi regime earlier when Nixon was the president. So let's forget the bitterness. Let's forget what happened. Bygones are bygones. Let's
Hmm.
start our journey on a fresh start.
Right.
So Reagan invited Mrs. Gandhi and hosted a dinner in her honor, and Mrs. Gandhi very thankfully accepted the dinner. It was said that by the White House, and she said, okay, let's find a common area. How so small? That's what
Hmm.
the word which
Right.
really touched Reagan, the Indira Gandhi's word. She said, find a common area. How so even ever small? The leaders ends up agreeing to the increased corporations and the resolving of the dispute of the nuclear plant, and then they signed a deal. Reagan agreed. And in US, then started supplying the low enriched uranium fuel for the India's Tarapur power plant,
Hmm.
and that's how it's happened. And then Vice President George Bush Senior, he later becomes the president, but at that time he was
Right.
vice. He was a deputy to Reagan. He also visited New Delhi
Hmm.
on invitation of Mrs. Gandhi. you know
Hmm.
so that's how it happened. But then again, after 2 years, a major twist came with a Pobal tragic carbide accident, right?
Right.
Which was owned by the American company Union Carbide, right? A
Right.
toxic gas and chemical leaks in the Bhopal, and it kills thousands and thousands and make another hundreds of people really very very sick. Okay,
Right.
either they have become permanently blind or they have become permanently incapacitated of doing the work, and it was a major blow to the relationship between India and United States, because United States said, oh, it was not our fault, but it was 110%, it was that Union Carbide fault,
Right. And I
right?
think that is like very interesting episode, right? And like we can like lay out certain things. So Union Carbide is a private company, right? It's a public
Right.
like company, so it's not a government company.
Like
But
most of the companies in America,
yeah,
right?
exactly. So that company did a crime. I mean, committed a crime, and its leadership should have been indicted for those crimes. They
Yeah,
never
but
were.
did no. And
Like they
India was
never
very
were.
unsuccessful in extradition of the company chief executive from United States for criminal prosecution. It's a crime. It's
Yeah, it's a
as the
crime.
death and disability tolls climbs to tens of thousands in the coming years.
Yeah.
Okay,
And like it was almost like a like war crime kind of a thing because the entire
exactly.
city was made into a death chamber.
Yeah, it was just like the gas chambers
Gas chambers,
of
yeah,
Hitler, right?
of Hitler. Exactly.
Yeah,
Like
he
that's how
put
it became.
people in the gas chamber, and it was just a small places, right? But
Right.
here in India, and it's the one of the most populous city. The Bhopal was one of the most populous city of India,
Right.
and the major city of the state of Madhya Pradesh, right?
Right.
So and it was estimated more than 300,000 people were either killed or they were permanently disabled for the
Right.
rest of their life.
Right.
300,000 people.
And
It's
instantly within
the
hours.
combination, yeah,
Right.
it's the combination of the people who lost their lives in Hiroshima, Nagasaki.
Correct. And like so there
So,
was so the
how he
question
cannot be
was
a criminal?
yeah,
That's
so I think the thing that irked most Indians was that why was the US government backing private companies criminals who did this in within a night 4 to 16,000 people died instantly
yep,
instantly
yep,
and yet the US government tried to back that company and like so where was the whole idea of justice and like corporate laws and all those gone? I mean, like shouldn't that like if that company had to go bankrupt, then so be it.
yeah.
That is how it works, right? Like Lehman Brothers, yes.
Lehman Brothers, we have seen
Enron,
in our
yes.
time, yes, many companies here has lost their Barnes and Nobles, Lehman Brothers. It means there are hundreds of companies I have seen since I came to this country that they have been bankrupted. Why? Because they did something crime and they have to go off. Many of the stores are being closed. Many of the small or big organization they have to pay. But that's the problem. That's the problem. There here lies that how they seize the South Asia, India, or the rest of the world. They have different policies for their people and they have different policies for the rest of the world.
Right. That Bhopal gas tragedy and the US response almost permanently, you know, messed up the Indo-US relations on a people-to-people basis in many,
Yes,
many ways.
yes, yes. I don't know how the government administration react to it because at that time it was Rajiv Gandhi administration over that time,
Yeah.
right? Because it happened on December 1st, 1984, and Rajiv Gandhi was the new kid in the administration, right? He has no
Right.
idea of how the politics happened. He has never been a political leader, so he was just put because of family hierarchy at that time, which was very much prevalent in India. Thank God, no more now.
Right.
So he was put having no basic idea. I don't know how Rajiv Gandhi administration had dealt with Ronald Reagan, but to me, I think the people to people, it creates somewhat animosity, right, against the Americans, that oh my God, they killed our people. More than 300,000 has been either killed or incapsulated. So what's this going on, so
Because,
that
I remember Rajiv Gandhi also visited the US during Reagan's time. Like he
86 he
was,
visited, yes,
yeah,
86,
86.
87. I remember he visited Soviet Union as well as America.
Right.
So
Well,
after
it was
that,
1982, sorry. In 1982, actually, like Reagan came. Oh, sorry, Rajiv Gandhi came to meet Reagan.
no, not 1982, he became the prime minister in 1984.
Oh,
After
okay.
Indira Gandhi
Yeah, yeah,
died
yeah.
on
Right,
31st
right, 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 right.
October,
Right,
he visited, I think it was 85 or 86, because the first visit was to Soviet Union, I still remember.
right.
Okay. So, and later he visited America too.
Maybe
But
1987. I think
yeah,
1987 he came.
something at that
Okay.
time, because I
Right,
still
right, right.
I still, yeah, he visited Reagan during that time.
Right.
Yeah, 1985, June 11 to June 15. I just
Okay.
googled out. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And then again he has an official visit on October 19 to 20th in 1987.
Correct.
Okay. So now he visited twice in America. Okay.
Correct.
So that's the thing. But coming back to our main idea, the main topic of Indo-US relation, how he's had been a roller coaster across in the last 40, 50 years before it get more stagnant or more, I will say, cooperative and more towards the common goal of the democracies. It
Hmm.
only come after I think Kargil war. But before going to the Kargil war, when National Defense Secretary also in 1990, when the Rajiv government has gone, okay, he was
Right.
no more in the government. There was a lot of tension going between India and Pakistan, because they have started diffusing a lot of terrorists into Indian territories, because they always have this idea, okay, if we can take over Soviet Union, we can take over Kashmir too, right? All those
Right.
mujahideens which were created by Pakistan and armed by America during the Soviet Union and Afghanistan war. The vacuum is created after the Soviet Union left of Afghanistan. So how do they get their money and their everything? So the terrorism started coming to cross bordering the Kashmir, and which was a big hurdle in the relations of the India Pakistan too.
Right.
So that if you I remember, I was a kid at that time, that the tension was really at the peak, very
Right.
much at the peak.
Because it was not just Kashmir, like where all the terrorist activity was there, but also the Khalistan. Punjab
Yeah,
was in the
burning.
throes of, yeah, it was burning, and it was in throes of one of the worst terror movement that was started by Pakistan and the US actually. Khalistan's origin was in Nixon and Kissinger's plan to actually spite Indira Gandhi because she started the 1971 war. Not many people know that, but this is where it started. So, like what Nixon and Kissinger did was started working with Yahya Khan, and they picked up Jagjit Singh Chauhan, and he was sent all over the place. He was brought into the US, given media appearances, like gone to ISI, like to Pakistan, and got some relics from there. And that is what he used to become the leader for Khalistan. And that is
Mm-hmm.
what the US, so US along with Pakistan started the Khalistan movement, which was at the
Mm-hmm.
peak during the 1990s, and like
Mm-hmm.
especially the early 1990s.
Yeah, because yeah, if you see the means, I can very well resonate what you are saying, because I am
Right,
from that area and I have seen
right,
the terrorism, shut doors after 5 o'clock, don't answer anybody after five, even if it is your next door neighbor, right? So the fear and the terrorist activities which was going in the state of Punjab, and also to do that, I just want to mention here the June 1984 attack on the Darbar Sahib, the Golden Temple in Amritsar, right, just to
hmm,
eliminate the terrorist activity, also fueled a lot of terrorism, because the Pakistan get the idea, oh, they want to take you off. But it's an irony that more than 50,000 Sikhs lives in Pakistan, and today there is no more left. All their gurudwaras has been taken over by the jihadis, Islamist terrorisms, and have been converted either to their shelters or to the bathrooms, or they have been converted to the mosque, right? So
Hmm.
we can hardly count on the fingers now how many Sikh families are there, or how many Sikh brothers are left in Pakistan. But coming back to our point of that terrorist activity, it everybody knows it's an open secret that it was sponsored by Pakistan. They were funding the terrorist activity. And when the government in 1990 changed, when again Mr. Vajpayee came, sorry, Mr. Nasimha Rao came back, and he appointed Byan Singh as the chief minister of Punjab. Byan Singh was also assassinated by the terrorists because he said clean. His theory was clean Punjab. I
Hmm.
don't want anything. And along with the DGP, Mr. Virk, right? DGP Virk and Director General of Police, Mr. Virk, and Byan Singh both worked together, and it was cleaned within 1 to 2 years. I still remember when he was assassinated in bomb blast in Chandigarh at the Punjab Secretariat. Okay, so at 5 o'clock when he was going out, he was leaving. So the thing is that Pakistan has always been the, what I can say, the like a slave to the American presidents. But I'm sorry to say, but that's how it has behaved since its creation and its partition from India. Which is not good, a healthy way of surviving for any country. So,
Yeah,
uh,
sometimes I wonder whether Pakistan was a slave or Pakistan had the US administration by its you know what, right? Because because
U.S. administration buys the leftovers. You want to say?
because the thing is, I mean, why would say Reagan administration betray its own people to give US all, like Pakistan, all the nukes, and then facilitate everything that happened in jihad and everything else, and like not many people know, but we can come to it later about the 9/11 thing as well, and the role
Yeah.
of Pakistan, like in that, and how the US or the US media has never talked about it, even though there is credible evidence that there was a relationship between Pakistan's ISI and 9/11. But
Yep.
we'll talk
Yeah.
about that later. But so I'm kind of always ambivalent, like when it comes to US and Pakistan relationship,
Even
and
to be
who,
honest, I am not
right,
understanding the relationship between the both countries, because see, the relationship between any country, as by my understanding, is one relationship is administration to administration, second is
right,
people to people, the third is business to business, right?
right,
And the fourth one is like on a basis of what you call common goals, right?
hmm,
So they don't have any common goals. I don't. It was always, America has always used Pakistan as a tissue paper, as a toilet
right,
paper, I will say. I'm
right,
sorry, but I think America has used Pakistan as a toilet paper. When they when they do something wrong, they put the sanction on that. The Bush administration has put the sanctions, the senior Bush, okay,
right,
in 1992. I want to talk later now, but because in 1991, just go back 1 year back, and then I will come to 1992.
hmm,
In 1991, India under the Nasimha Rao ji administration, and Manmohan Singh ji was the finance minister, right? So they put some economic reforms because India was going to default at that time. We all would have been bankrupted if India has not put a couple of, I don't remember how many tons of gold they have put to the Bank of England. I think 400 tons or something. I don't remember.
right,
So and they get the first IMF loan, and the only IMF loan ever in the
right,
history, right?
right,
So then they said, okay, let's open the door, because now the world has to come to India and sees potentiality, sees the technology we are in, see the way, the mindset of the people, how the brain of the people, and all those. And in addition to that, India was also on making the cryogenic engine, right?
right.
Which
Yeah.
scientist was doing that? What was his name? Shashan? No,
B, Nambi, Mr. Nambi.
Nambi. Right, right. yeah, he was very close friend of Mr. T.N. Shashan, the 10 Elector General of the India. So even
Mr.
and
Nambi
he,
Narayan.
yeah, Nambi Narayanji, yeah, Nambi Narayanji was was framed by CIA under the wrong cases, and he was put in jail for no reason, which was proved later down the line. And the plan of the cryogenic India engine of India to develop was delayed for, I think, 18 years now.
Right.
But later in 2014, I think, or when 2013, India was capable of creating the cryogenic engine, and now ISRO is on the top of all the research organization we
So,
have
just
so
for the
far.
context, Mr. Nambi Narayanan is Indo-Aerospace scientist from
Right.
Indian Space Research Organization,
Organization.
which
Yep.
does
Yep.
all the space work. So he was going, like, he had contributed a lot of things to a lot of programs, like within ISRO, but he was being instrumental in creating the cryogenic engine, and cryogenic engine was like said to be of dual use,
Yep.
both for space as
As
well
well.
as for the intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Missiles.
And
Yep.
this is very, very important to remember, because US actually put sanctions on India for cryogenic engine, but nobody ever talks about how the heck did North Korea and Pakistan get the intercontinental ballistic missiles when they do not have a space program. The thing is, any country which has intercontinental ballistic missiles should have a space program. If they do not, that means they have borrowed, stolen, or like bought from somebody else. And that is
Yes.
exactly what Pakistan and North Korea have done. They have
Yes.
gotten it from China. They do not have a space program at all.
No.
So coming
They
back
don't have
to
an
cryogenic,
organization. They don't have the people who can work on it, right? Leave.
right? Because the technology is the same. Here it goes up all the way for space, and in ballistic missiles it comes back.
Yeah,
But the
10,000
principal
miles.
physics is
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah, because instead of going here,
Yeah.
instead of you just have to change the trajectory, right?
Right.
Instead of going at 90 degree or 85 or 75, whatever it goes to the space. I'm not a space scientist. I'm just from a layman saying that I have also read physics. Instead of going this, you have to create a trajectory which goes like and hit the
Right.
your targets, right? So it has the same engine, and similarly also the jet engine also use some part of it which flows at very high speed jets, like 5,000 miles per hour and all those. They also use the same technology but to a
Right.
lesser extent,
Right.
you know
So that became a major bone of contention between
contention
India,
between the,
and
yeah,
not only Nambi Narayanan, like Mr. Nambi Narayanan was actually framed, but a lot of Indian space
nu-
scientists
has been
and
killed,
nuclear scientists were killed
killed one by one.
one
Some
by
goes
one.
some goes to the morning walk, never return back. A ladies went to the kitchen, all of the sudden a blast happened in the kitchen. How come all these things are happening?
There was one who was actually killed by a bite of a snake because somebody actually sent a cobra in his house.
Yeah. So these are the things which I am very unhappy with the Indian government, that why don't we have the black and white, that how this had happened, and how only to the nuclear scientists, how
Right,
only to those people leave the nuclear, only to those scientists who are working on very critical missions,
right,
like intercontinental, like the Agni missiles, or like the cryogenic engines, or like the one which to the space research, only to the, because ISRO has hundreds of projects going on, right?
right,
But the most critical one who are working on that, they are either killed, they are poisoned, they are drowned in the river, they met with an accident. It can't happen everyone. Yes, people met with an accident. It can happen once in a 10 year. One nuclear scientist can die in a 10 year, but it's another day we will discuss. But I
right,
think India has lost more than 25 nuclear scientists in the last 3-4 decades.
right,
Yeah. So coming back to our topic of how the Indian-US relations were going on. So in 1995, when Clinton was in power here and Narasimha Raoji was in India, they said that, okay, we are worried that India are going to stage a nuclear test. CIA has given the report that yes, India is on the path of the nuclear test. We have concrete evidence. and we have to encourage them to reconsider adherence to non-proliferation treaty. But
Right.
India said it's not in our health, because we are not going to agree to what one country says, right? That's
Yeah.
not the way the Indian government works. We are not a puppet. We are not a banana republic that anybody will come and say and we will agree to that. Okay, so the mysteries of the cable continues, and this keeps on going up and back, to and fro, from New Delhi to Washington. That okay, we have the declassified emails by the Arm Control and the Disarmament Agency, which staffers indirectly discuss the satellite for pictures from showing that India is planning to do something big in Rajasthan, in Pokhran, Rajasthan, where they have already conducted in 1974. So, but Indian government keep on denying all those pictures and saying that no, this is not the way. Even when Narasimha Rao ji visited White House on the invitation of Bill Clinton in 1994, 19th May 1994, there was a close discussion which happened, and they said that the US government is very concerned that Pakistan has already started to resume the uranium activity beyond 5%. And as a
Mm.
part of its support, or by for a feasible material production cutoff agreement, Washington was discussing this problem with the Pakis, who denied that any such. And India said that our peaceful nuclear explosion of May 1974 was a near failure. They said, but it was not a failure, because the base was already created. So in the press release statement, they said it was a failure, but it was not. The same report also signed that the test sites will begin working in November of 1995, and India may also do another test by January or at the maximum February of 1996.
Mm.
But then the elections came. The new Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji came in, and there was lots of problem happened. He lost. He was just for Prime Minister 13 days and 13 months, and when finally he came for a longer time, the American ambassador in August of 1996, Frank Wisner, said that Atal Bihari Vajpayee body language shows me he's going to do the test. We can't stop him.
Right.
And he is very determined to take India to the next level.
Because, like at that time, that was the only way out for India to actually expose this whole deal that was going on
Dogma which
between
has been created, right?
yeah, between Pakistan, US, and even China, because China had
Right.
given the DIY kits to Pakistan as well as the uranium to do to make its critical mass and all those things, and nobody was talking about it. US was quiet, and they were actually involved with all these things, and India had no other way out but to do the blast so that everyone comes out in the open, and then everyone starts talking. The AQ
Exactly.
Khan thing was going on for a long time. It was only after this in 2004 that they said, oh my God, AQ Khan was running a proliferation bazaar, nuke bazaar. Really? Like you are the guys who set it up for him.
Exactly. How can he stole and he can fly, I think, from Vienna, right?
He actually was in Amsterdam, like he was there in like Netherlands, and he was part of a Dutch company at that time. He had
Yeah.
taken all the NATO designs for nukes for a nuke plant, and then like taken all that, and then like went to Pakistan in 1975 finally, and he was indicted, like he was going to be indicted by the court there, but the US government pushed the Dutch authorities to actually like finish up the case.
Right.
So nothing
Right.
happened.
Nothing happened. And now if you see, Mr. Biden just a couple of months back said we are really very scared of Pakistan having the nukes. Oh really? You
Yeah.
created the demon, and now you're scared of that demon.
Yeah, now I think like this
Right?
whole thing is so weird and so
This
twisted.
Pilothra, I don't understand. I will be very honest, as a common man, as an Indian American, I don't understand this plethora of lies. You created China, and then you said China is has become the axis of evil. You created Saddam Hussein, and then it become your axis of evil. You were very much training Pakistan, their nuclear weapons and their military junta, and now you are saying that they have become out of the control. So I still remember when Hillary Clinton visited Pakistan, and she mentioned you can't have what she said in your backyard, scorpions, right? You can't
Yeah,
have scorpions in your
snakes and
backyard.
scorpios. Yeah,
Yeah, snakes and
snakes.
scorpions in your backyard, and you expect them not to bite you.
Right,
So that not only goes with that goes with everybody. It means, how can America expect to harness those scorpions and to feed those snakes, and don't expect them that they will not bite him ever? You know that
right,
that this all metaphor they have created so far. The
right.
metaphors of lies, the metaphors of nonsense, glamorized lies,
Yeah,
and punctured truth. So all these have to, one day it has to blow up.
right. And I think like that is what they are not. A lot of people do not understand that. See, it's not about being anti-US or bashing
No,
US or
no,
anything like
no.
that.
US is our second motherland, and we owe this country a lot, as this country owe us too, right? So
Right.
yeah,
So
so
I mean, for example, I'll give you a small example, like Kundus Airlift, like when the 9/11 happened. After 9/11, when the Al Qaeda was actually like fighting there, and Taliban were also fighting. What happened was that the Pakistanis said that our brigadiers and our army folks are actually have been fighting alongside Taliban and Al Qaeda. We want to take them out. So what did like US did do? They actually created an air passage for Pakistan to take out its army folks who were fighting alongside Taliban and Al Qaeda for 4 days or 4 or 5 nights. They actually kept taking out people. It is said that 5,000 people were taken out. The entire Al Qaeda gang was gone. So what the heck were they fighting? So after that, once Al Qaeda and Taliban were moved by Pakistan to Pakistan itself from Afghanistan, how do you think 2,500 US personnel were killed after that? Like during the entire Afghanistan war in the 20 years by the same folks. So the way I understand it is that the US government, the US establishment, actually helped Al Qaeda and Taliban at that time through the Kunduz airlift. And like that happened on those 5 nights and created the force that was instrumental in killing the US personnel. So if I as an American citizen, when I look at this, I am distraught.
yep,
I'm
yep.
angry because you set up the US personnel to be killed because that's what you did.
Have you seen the movie Lions for Lamb? It was Tom Cruise movie.
No,
Yeah, please watch that. Please, I insist every American should watch that. Lions for Lambs.
right,
It was during the time of Afghanistan war only, 2007, 2008. Okay.
right.
And it shows that how the senators and how the congressmen, when they played with the lives of American citizens.
I mean, they like it is just crazy. I mean, like I'll give you another example. 9/11.
Yeah, we can
Uh,
discuss
uh,
that when we come to 9/11, right?
okay.
So
Yeah.
let's go, because it's very
Yeah.
crucial. We go with the timelines, right? So he said that India is going to have the nuclear bomb. Sorry, India going to have the nuclear test, and Mr. Vajpayee body language indicate he's going to have it, and nobody can stop him. And that he said in August 1996, and exactly after a couple of years or less than 2 years, on May 11th and 13th, India has the nuclear attack. Sorry, nuclear test,
Hmm.
and it was successful. Excuse me, and it was successful, right? And then all those G8 countries, including at that time Ukraine, has condemned that, which is now asking India for the help. Okay, I
Right.
just want to highlight that in your show. So they have also condemned, and Mr. Vajpayee has written a letter. Let me read out a few lines from there. I have been deeply concerned at the deteriorating security environment, especially the nuclear environment faced by India for the past few years. We
Right.
have an overt nuclear weapon state on our borders, a state with a committed armed aggression against India in 1962.
Right.
Mr. Clinton, although our relation with that country has improved in the last decades or so, an atmosphere of distrust persists mainly due to the unresolved border disputes.
Correct.
To add to this distrust, that country has materially helped another neighbor of ours to become a covert nuclear weapon state. That was you were mentioning a couple of minutes back. China has
Right.
helped Pakistan, and that's what Mr. Vajpayee told him.
Right.
At the hand of this bitter neighbor, we have suffered three incursions in the last 50 years. And the last 10 years, we have seen the victim of unremitting terrorism and militancy sponsored by it in several parts of our country, especially the state of Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir. Because at that time it was Jammu and Kashmir, the state, but now
Right.
it's the Union Territory, right? I just want to let your viewers know that we are not
Right.
mispronouncing or misgiving the information. So, fortunately, the faith of people in our democratic system, as also their patriotism,
Hmm.
I want to repeat, as also their patriotism has enabled India to counter the activities of terrorism and militant aided and abetted from abroad.
Correct.
The series of deaths are limited in number and pose no danger to any country which has no amicable intentions towards India. We value our friendship and cooperation with your country and you personally. We hope
Hmm.
you will show understanding of our concern for India's security. And when he ended the letter, he has written, I assure you, India will continue to work with your country in a multilateral or bilateral framework to promote the cause of nuclear disarmament.
Right.
Our commitment to participate in non discriminatory and verifiable global disarmament measure is amply demonstrated by our adherence
Right.
to the two conventions on biological and chemical weapons. We are ready to participate in the negotiation to be held in Geneva conference on disarmament, and I enclose for your information the text of the press statement issued after the nuclear test was carried out today. I close with expression of my highest consideration for your country and yourself too. Thank you, Mr. Vajpayee.
Right.
Now, he has mentioned that I have snakes and scorpions on my west border, my east border. We have so much hostile neighbors. I have to get ready. I'm not attacking them,
Right.
right? But they should have a fear. If they put a weapon on us, we can also destroy them.
Correct.
You know, and that's a fear. And that's a fair ask. What's wrong in that,
Right.
right? And how can other nuclear weapon states can have hundreds and thousands in their stockpiles, and the people and the countries which are really on the threat from all over the neighbors doesn't have that. You see the India situation. Let's compare for a
Right.
fifth next 1 minute India and US situation. India is jammed between the hostile neighbors.
Right.
Western border, we have Pakistan. Eastern border, we have China.
Hmm.
Down south, we have means you can say east south. We have which is a military junta, right?
Right.
Nepal. always in a limbo.
Right.
Sri Lanka, economic crisis.
Right.
What is left? Bangladesh, anytime, anything can happen there. It's unpredictable, right?
Right.
So, how can, and just forget, how can we forget Afghanistan?
Right.
Just 400 kilometers from Delhi,
Right.
correct? What's going on in Afghanistan? So India is surrounded by all the demons.
Because in 1990s, in early 1990s, when the US actually, left the Afghanistan area, at that time, like it was very obvious and it's known, very well known, that Pakistan actually diverted all those terrorists towards India.
Right.
Everybody knows it. Aslam Beg, the ISI
Yep.
chief, used to call it
Yeah.
the strategic depth
Yeah.
of
He has
Pakistan.
given the slogan, "We
Yeah,
have taken the Russia, we will take the India now."
right.
He that
Because
was the
that's what they
slogan.
did. Yeah, so this nexus of Pakistan and Afghanistan at that time, now obviously, like they are at loggerheads, but at that time, how ISI used all this with the help of US CIA at that time, which everyone knows, was instrumental in actually accentuating the situation in India for terrorism. And that's very important to understand, why there were so many misgivings in India at that time.
Right.
And
Right.
so this whole thing happens, and then there was a dialogue that Vajpayee's NSA, Brajesh Mishra, had with the US, and the US representatives, and things changed quite a lot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The thing changed. The turning point in the India-US relation is after the Kargil War,
Right.
because when Pakistan CIA submitted the reports to President Clinton saying that this is the Pakistan army, Mr. President, Indian Prime Minister Vajpayee is right on that. And Clinton in his memoir has written that I was shocked that Pakistan had distrusted me. But sir, it's not the first time they had distrusted you. Haven't you learned from the history? If you forget the history, you're going to repeat the same mistake over and over again. In
Right.
1992, when George Bush Sr. imposed sanction, there was a reason behind that.
Right.
He was a very seasoned politician. He was a vice president for 8 years, and then he became the president. He was in the White House for 12 years in a straight row
Right.
from 1980 to 1992. So you should have learned from your from your previous presidents what they
Right.
have done.
Right. And so 1998, actually, that 1999, I mean, it started in 1998, but 1999, that entire Kargil war happened, right?
Yeah,
And like not many people like really understand the implications of what happened, because it was like started by Pervez Musharraf and like Nawaz Sharif. They say, I mean, there's all a debate whether he knew or did not knew, but the Pakistan forces dressed up as tribals attacked
right,
India.
right,
So it was an act of war that happened, and India retaliated and threw them out. And there was a conversation between Pervez Musharraf and his second in chief, who was in Pakistan, and Musharraf was in China in a hotel, which was actually recorded and shown for the world, of how the Pakistan army was involved in Kargil,
yep.
like directly.
And I think it
And
was helped by Israel Mossad on that with the Indian
right.
agencies.
And thing is that like one of the things that became a bone of contention during Kargil was that Stinger missiles, which the US had left within Afghanistan,
Afghanistan.
were used against the Indian forces. And like because Pakistan used all the US arms against the Indian forces at that time.
Yeah,
So that was an experience that like did not go down very well with the Indians, at the height of the war, because a lot of unspeakable crimes happened.
right.
The Pakistan
And
forces did all that to like left, a Captain Saurabh Kalia and all that.
Right,
Everybody
right.
knows that.
Everybody know how he was murdered and then sliced to pieces, right?
Yeah.
So and and
So that
and
became
also,
part of the consciousness of every Indian at that time of how
yeah,
this unspeakable crimes that, I mean, like I
yeah.
always say that there is no Pakistani army, it's just a group of war criminals.
No, that's what it's called. Country has an army, but here in Pakistan, an army has a country, right?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is it's not even an army, it's actually a bunch of war criminals. I
Yeah,
mean,
war
war
criminal
criminals
or
which
the
are worse than
or the
Nazis.
militants. I don't ever call Pakistan army. I call they a militants group, right?
Right.
Because they had 350 plus militant groups in Pakistan. And how you can say that we are fighting war with them? Oh, come on, man! You are feeding them. You're giving them trainings. You are giving them military equipments. You are giving them foods and houses to live. Right?
Right. Because if you go to 1971, and the reason why I call them war criminals is if you go to 1971,
Oh,
and like
that's
before that,
Operation Searchlight,
the
right? Oh
Operation
my God!
Searchlight, they
Oh my God!
actually had 200 to 300,000 women in sex camps.
Yeah. Yep.
In
Yep.
sex camps.
Yeah.
And they would
And
rape
it was,
them, gang rape them till the time that they could not be raped anymore because they were so bad in their health. And
yeah.
then they would throw them out.
Yeah,
That's
the
what
same.
happened.
This is the strategy ISI is following, right?
They do it
Uh,
all the time. Well, like
yeah,
that's what they do to Balochis.
yeah.
That's what they do to other people. So it's they're not. I mean, by no stretch of imagination can you ever call that an army, because that is like army in the
Is for the
world
people.
has
Is for
some
the people, right?
correct.
If you see the any army, even the US Army, I saw whenever anything happens, like last year we have very bad thunderstorms in Texas or wherever happened, army come forward and help the people, right? Similar in India when tsunami happened or any flooding happened, excuse me, I was a little kid when the floods came in I think 87 or what, or 88, I don't remember exactly,
Right, right,
in Punjab. It was the army who was helping the people with the boats and all those. The army came forward, giving the food and everything. And that's the work. It's for the
but
people, for the country.
even in the war there are certain principles that you follow.
You
You know,
have to
Geneva
follow,
Convention, yes, but
about the
even
Geneva
otherwise.
Conventions, you have to
Right.
follow.
But
And
here they
also
don't have any, I mean, like it's just
ethics, no
no
culture,
ethics.
no
You
ethics,
forget
no
about,
values.
yeah, like it's about so inhuman.
Yeah,
Their methods are so inhuman that
yeah,
like you cannot believe that a human being can even fall down to such level. And this is not a one-off thing that happened in 1971. 1948 when they attacked Kashmir, the same thing
yeah. The
happened.
same thing happened. They killed hundreds of men. They raped thousands of women, right? And
Yeah,
also
they
after
actually went into
independence,
a,
are you
yeah,
know?
they
Do
went
you know?
into a like hospital and they gang raped all the nuns there.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know that I have heard from our parents and grandparents that in after the partition in 1947 October or November in Karachi, they strip all the Hindu women and they ask them to for a parade, and
Yeah,
whoever picks anyone can pick anyone, and she becomes the sex slave. It was
right,
happening right under the nose of the United Nations. It was happening right under the nose of US, UK. Nobody speak a word. And
right,
now they're coming up. Oh, we have the, what is the terminology she called, the UK foreign minister, gangs, brooming gangs, right?
right, right,
Right, right. Brooming gangs. Now we have the brooming gangs. Oh man, you raise these brooming gangs.
right,
Just unfold your history, okay? Just to fold a few pages of your history of a couple of years or decades. You were the one who raised them and taught them what to do. Okay,
right.
you never utter a speak. You are never utter a word, and you never speak anything. And now you are saying they are killing you. Obviously,
Yeah,
if you feed a snake, he's not going to give you a hug. He's going to
right,
bite you with the venomous you have put in from the ages.
right. So I think we like it's this dialogue has gone on for quite a long time. So
Yeah,
maybe
we
we'll have
need
a
to do.
third one,
Yeah.
where we'll close
Yeah, before
everything.
we close, I also want to tell you a very important information
Right.
that India has done the nuclear test because Pakistan has successfully test fired its medium range missile on April 7th, 1988,
Hmm.
which can reach deep into Indian territory of Madhya Pradesh or even can hit the eastern states of Assam or Manipur also, because
Right.
it's all how the trajectory goes.
Right.
And India, it has sent the shockwaves across the Indian parliament. And then India spoke with the Russia, and then they signed that, okay, we can also help you to make a sea-based ballistic missiles which has a range of 200 miles.
Right.
And then India said, okay, if you can do that. So that was also, I will say, forced Prime Minister Vajpayee. He
Hmm.
was under deep pressure because it was a coalition of 26 government,
Right.
sorry, 26 parties, when he became when he has his government, that we have to do something.
Right.
Pakistan is increasing day by day. Even the Bush senior has put in sanctions on them, but nothing is happening.
Right.
They are doing. And I think that was the critical time. And within a month, then India conducted the nuclear test on May 11th and May 13th, 1988, because Mr. Vajpayee
1998.
was,
1998.
yeah, 1998.
Right.
Yeah, because in April 7th, 1998, they have conducted the medium range missile. So under
Right.
that pressure from his, you can say, party man or his government official, whatever the word you want to say,
Yeah.
he decided that, okay, we will do it. And then it's a history that how they did
Right.
it, how the US satellite, they they seems like it's they are playing a match, but it was not a match. Baseball match, it was not a baseball match or a volleyball match or nothing like that. And they fooled the American, so-called the highest and the sophisticated and the top edge satellites. you
Right.
know I'm sorry, but
Right.
that's how it happened. It's a very nice, I have seen one of the movie on this by Akshay Kumar, and it's a worth movie to, not Akshay
Right.
Kumar, what was that, John Abraham. It
Right.
was a
Right.
worth movie to watch.
Right.
Very nice movie.
So I think what we can do is, like, in the third and the final episode, we can talk all the way from 2000 onwards. So
Yeah,
2000s.
we will start from the Kargil War, because
Yeah.
after this the Kargil War happened. We didn't go in detail on the
Right.
Kargil War, right? So we will give a brief how the Kargil War happened, and then the Bush administration came, which was really a turning point towards the Indian-US relation. The civil nuclear deal happened in
Right.
2005, of July 2005,
Yeah.
and everything happened.
Right.
And since then, and then the Obamas, and now we have the Trump, and then the Biden. So we will
Right.
see how last 23 years, for 24 years, have shaped the US India relation to new heights,
Correct.
which world
Right.
has witnessed.
Right. So this is a very interesting dialogue that we are having. So please do subscribe to our channel, and please share these videos with everyone that you can, because I think these are very, very important
Yeah, we
for
should.
understanding the Indian perspective, the Indian American perspective of how the Indo-US relationships have shaped over the last so many years.
Yeah, it's
And
always a roller coaster, I will say.
right. And we are lucky that, like, we have somebody like Mr. Ankush Bhandari here, who knows so much of history and, like, has so much of information, like, as well on this. So thank you, Ankush ji, again,
Thank you so much,
so much.
Deshi.
Like, it was
Have a
great
nice
talking to you.
weekend.
You too. And so please, I'll share the link for Ankush ji's book, as well as I'll share the link for the newsletter that we send out from Drishtikon every Sunday, like in the morning US time. It is for free. So please sign up, and also please do check out the book by Mr. Ankush Bhandari. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Namaste
you.
once again.
Namaste.